everyone. I'm Jenna.
And I'm Mark. Thank you all for joining us for another episode of Cincinnati Zoo Tales. We appreciate you all tuning in. Jenna, we've got a great guest today. We're being joined by Ashley Ashcraft. Ashley is the team leader and one of the keepers of our primate center. She doesn't just take care of gorillas, but gorillas are going to be the main topic of our conversation today. Thank you for joining us. We're really excited to have you on.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Yes, I feel like it's really weird, but for some reason, I don't get down to Gorilla World often, and I cannot keep up with the group of gorillas that we have and their names. I can't identify them, and they're one of the most popular animals here at the zoo. So I'm excited to learn. When people come to visit, they're like, "Oh, who's that? Who's that?" I'm like, I have no idea.
Well, I'm excited to tell you so we can talk all about it.
Good.
I'm right there with you. It's hard because I feel like we all kind of get trapped in our bubbles sometimes.
Yeah.
And gorillas are on the exact opposite side of the zoo as our Africa habitat. So a lot of times I don't get over there, and we need to get over there more often. But yeah, I'm excited to hear about the gorillas today. But I wanted to start off just learning a little bit about you, your background, kind of what got you interested in wildlife or gorillas in particular.
Yeah, I think I have a very similar backstory, probably compared to a lot of zookeepers. I've always grown up wanting to work with animals. I thought I wanted to do like a veterinarian route, quickly decided that was not for me. But in college, I took some primatology classes, and I just fell in love with primates there. I did some sanctuary work there as well, and fell in love with gibbons. I had the opportunity to go, after I graduated, I had the opportunity to go to the Vervet Monkey Foundation in South Africa, and that just kind of reinforced my love of primates.
Awesome.
And then I was able to do some internships and landed an internship here, and that's where my love of gorillas really came in.
Were you an intern in the summer of 2009?
Yes.
Same time as me? I
Yeah,
thought
same
we were
time.
the same summer. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
And were you in Primate Center then?
Yes.
And we did half days. Were you somewhere else too?
I did Jungle Trail, so I
so
didn't
you were-
venture far. And I did they let me do 2 back-to-back internships there, so it was very summer and like not wanting to leave because I loved gorillas so much. So I was like, I'm staying here. So I worked seasonally and temporarily for quite a while and then hired on full-time. So I wouldn't suggest that to anybody trying to get a job here. Like, please be much more open to traveling
I did
and
it
moving.
too. I thought you got hired pretty quickly.
No, it took
No?
about 4 years or
Okay.
something to get a full-time job.
I don't know why I thought you were quicker than
It seemed a lot longer because
Yes.
you're just wanting to get in.
Isn't that weird? You're
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, this feels like forever now looking back.
Right.
Yeah, every season you're kind of hanging on. Am I going to get rehired? Am I going to get brought back? And you hope
Exactly.
so, but
It's a roller coaster.
Is anyone
but it's
going to
worth it.
retire anytime soon? Like, get out of here. My
For
turn.
sure.
But you mentioned you kind of started your interest in college. Where did you go to college?
I went to Ohio State
Okay.
and did a zoology program there. And so they had a sanctuary pretty close to the college, so I
I
got to
didn't
work
know
with
that.
gibbons there. It's not affiliated with Ohio State, but they kind of recruit Ohio State students. So I ended up there and loved it and continued on.
Yeah, that's awesome work for a college student. That's amazing.
Yeah. Do you still love gibbons? I mean, I'm sure you love all the
Yes.
animals you work with, but
Yeah.
like, are gorillas definitely your thing now?
I love gorillas, and I love orangutans too. So they were my first love. I did an internship at a different zoo, and that's where my love of orangs came in. But then here is we have our whole department is very much gorilla based, and then we have smaller primates as well. And then Jungle Trails has the bonobos and the orangs. So my focus now is certainly much more on gorillas, and I love them to death. So, yeah.
Do you find it scary at all working with these animals that are so intelligent? Like, is it?
Absolutely.
we talk about how, like, lions are scary in the sense that, like, they're predators and they want to hunt things.
Yeah.
But, like, I think, because I did half day at Jungle Trails, like, just seeing how smart primates are, I'm like, that is not for me. That seems terrifying.
Yeah.
Because they will, like, check out locks.
They will absolutely do that. My first day that I was, like, cleared to work gorillas, the exact same thing happened to me. Samantha, our oldest at the time, going behind me and checking all my locks, and I was like, whew. It's very intimidating. They're incredibly smart. They catch on to everything, so if you mess up, they'll definitely let you know it.
Yeah.
They're kind of, they're gentle giants, but they are also, males have the strength of 8 to 10 men, so it's incredibly scary, and giant canines. And
Yes, and the intelligence of,
Yes.
What is there something you compare it to?
Yeah, so
like a 5-year-old.
It's said to be about a 2 or 3 year old
Wow,
child.
okay.
Yeah, and they're all individuals, so they all have
Give or
different.
take. Yeah.
And then Samantha, she was probably just trying to help you out.
Oh,
she was
yeah.
like, I'll just make sure that no one else notices, and then I'll let her know if she's somehow messed up.
Yeah.
She's
But
looking out for you.
she was my gorilla doppelganger, I think. They're very similar. I was
That's
like, okay,
hilarious.
thank you for checking, but please stop.
So
awesome.
you've been full-time in Primate Center since you became a full-time keeper.
Yes.
And, gorillas, well, we have quite a few, and we want to hear about them, and I want to hear a lot about, like, the training and their personalities. So I always do this to people. I give you, like, this really broad, open-ended question. I was about to say, tell us about the gorillas. But, like, if you just want to introduce us to the ones we have.
Okay, so we have a total of 11 Western lowland gorillas, and they're broken up into 3 different family groups. So those family groups don't coincide, and we try our best so that they don't see each other even. It's to that extent. So really gorillas live in what's called a harem. So 1 adult male per group, and the rest are females and kids. So in zoos, we try to mimic that. So that's what we have set up, 3 different family groups. So we have, we typically name our groups after the silverback or the adult male of the group. So only adult males become silverbacks, and that's when they're fully mature, and they're the leader and the boss of the group. So we have Ndume's group, which consists of Mara and Malinzi. Malinzi just had her 40th birthday yesterday.
Oh, wow.
And Ndume is 41, so they're up there. So in the wild, they'll get to like just into their 30s, so they will surpass their life. Yeah.
Wow.
So she had a nice little birthday, and then Mara is Malinzi's biological daughter, so it's really fun to watch those two interact with each other. And then we have Mashindi's group, so he is in charge of Talivu and Bandia. And that's Talivu's a sassy girl, and I love her to death. She's super smart and super playful, but oh my gosh, she has the biggest personality. And then we have Mbeli's group. So Mbeli's the one that just recently came in from Denver in October. So he is now the leader of Chewy, our adult female, and then our 3 little girls. So Gladys, Mondika, we call her Mona, and then Elle. So he's doing a really good job with them so far.
And how do you guys go about deciding, like, which silverback gets which female? Like, how do those personalities match? How do you make those decisions?
It is a huge collaboration, basically. So I know you guys, I'm sure you have talked about the SSP here, the Species Survival Plan that looks at all the genes in U.S. zoos. So there's about 360 gorillas that they're looking at. So genetically, they decide which gorillas should come to which zoos. So unfortunately, when Jomo passed away earlier in the year, we needed to fill in his position. So Mbeli was in a position where he's 20 years old, so he's at the age where naturally in the wild they're going to start gathering their own family group. So even down to that we try to mimic. So he came here and we did a little bit of rearranging with some of our females, and to kind of put it into context, I guess, it was the 3 little girls and Malinzi and Jomo in one group. And when Jomo passed away, they were sustainable for a short period, but Malinzi has a very subdued personality. I love her to death. She's one of my favorites. But she will not scold children when she needs to scold children. So we did decide to go ahead and flip up Malinzi and Chewy. And Chewy, we call her Auntie Chewy now. But Chewy, it kind of has a personality almost of like a silverback. So she really acted as their leader and disciplinary in the interim time until we could get Mbeli here.
Okay.
So it was several months, just being a female group, which usually is okay, but it won't last super long. So you want to try to fill in that position as quickly as possible. But the SSP helps you. They know all the personalities of gorillas, so they'll help match as best they can. And we will say, like, we'll give our input if we think it's going to work or not. And I mean, he's just been so great. He came from a bachelor group in Denver, so this is truly his first family group. So that's another way gorillas are found in the wild in bachelor groups. So when we talk about these harems, where you have 1 adult male and the rest are females and kids, people are like, okay, so where are all the rest of the boys at?
That's what I was just going to ask.
Yeah.
Are there way more females than males?
Yeah, so you do have that. So typically about the age of 8, that young male in the group is going to start challenging the dad or the silverback of the group. And that silverback will just kind of push them out of the family group. So then he either goes, he can live solitary if he chooses, or if he finds a bachelor group and fits in with them, he'll live with that bachelor group until he's fully mature. So then once he's fully mature, he'll finally get that silver coloring on his back. Before that, he'd be called a blackback. It would be harder to tell them apart from females at that point. So the silver coloring is almost kind of an advertisement to lady gorillas saying he's ready to start his own family group. So then, once he's fully mature, ready for his own group, he could acquire females in several different ways. He could challenge another silverback, coerce females away. There maybe a silverback from a different troop has passed, and females are trying to find another silverback, those types of things. So Mbelly was in a bachelor group before, so mimicking that, and then he comes and he finds his own family group.
And how's he adjusted to being here so far?
Oh my gosh, He's been amazing. I tend to, and this might just be my viewpoint, but silverbacks, I think because they have such like a strong role, they want to be in charge, they want to be the boss of things. I think sometimes it's a little bit harder for them to adjust. It takes a little bit longer. But he just came in and he just rocked it out. He was very confident. He's very, like, he does his job, but he's not overly aggressive or anything like that. He's very gentle with the 3 little girls, which we weren't sure. We knew whatever silverback were to come in, you have 1 adult female and then 3 smaller females. So it's, honestly not too much of a fair fight between a silverback and a group of little girls.
Yeah, I'm sure that's a little nerve-wracking.
Yeah, so having Chewy in there really helped back them up. But, I don't think that, honestly, he probably would have been fine if they didn't have Chewy. But they were in his face, and so those little girls were so confident in his face and just wanted to see him, and he just did everything so great. We didn't have an issue at all. He would just kind of slowly correct them because he needed a little space, which they were being a little too much in his face, in my opinion. But they did finally, like, after the excitement wore off, they give him his space, but they do really enjoy him, and it's been really fun to watch, definitely.
That's awesome. I'm so glad it went well. It's always scary introducing animals.
It is,
Of course, if you can't do anything to stop them, if something goes wrong, too. Like, we can't go in with the hippos and separate them if something were to happen, or same with gorillas. But what exactly are they doing as leaders, or, like, disciplinarians? Like, what are they teaching, or how are they keeping the group, like, glued together?
Yeah, so now we talk about the males being the leader of the group, and they absolutely are. But if the male steps out of line, these females are going to correct him.
Okay.
So that will absolutely happen. So the males will break up fights in the wild and that kind of thing. If females get food aggressive or whatever it is, the males will break that up. And kind of, they like things quiet. They like things calm. That means things are peaceful. So they'll do that type of thing. So, but as little kids grow up, they need to learn those things. So typically when you have an adult female or an adult male correcting a smaller individual, it's not going to be super aggressive. They might just kind of mouth them and then off they go. And the kid sits there and like, oh, okay, I've collected that information and then we will go further. But yeah, they're all so savvy in their gorilla behaviors, and it's been so amazing to watch.
I bet that's really fun to learn, like, the behaviors and like how they're communicating, just watching them and seeing what different behaviors mean.
Even little glances here and there, like, that's communicating. So when Jomo was in that group, he didn't have to do much. He had so much respect from those little girls. He would just look at them and they would be like, okay. I hear you.
And an outsider probably wouldn't even see that they were doing something that might be
subtle.
Like a little, they shouldn't be doing, and him giving that look, but you guys know them so well.
Yeah, it's very subtle. We've all know that look, though, from your parent, where you're like, okay, I'm straightening up. I won't do whatever I was doing.
But before we introduce them, like, we do everything we can to prep them for that full introduction. So you have, however long it takes to go at their pace, whatever they need. They'll see each other visually first. And then we'll kind of move them closer to where they can touch each other through like a mesh and that kind of thing. And it really reinforced them being next to each other. So high-valued enrichment items. We do cooperative feedings if we need to. And then see how that howdy mesh situation goes before we say, okay, let's go ahead and put them together. So there's a lot of work that goes into the full introduction process. So you are fully prepared, have set them up for full success as much as you can. But, when it does happen, it isn't abnormal to have vocal gorillas during that time.
Yeah.
I'm sure, yeah.
But it was pretty calm, and Chewie, for the most part, kind of kept her distance. She came in if she needed to come in, but she did great too.
So, okay, sorry, tell me one more time
Yeah.
the 3 groups we have, and then kind of how you decide who does what each day, or where they're going. How you might decide who's out in the indoor habitat versus the outdoor habitat.
Okay, so we have Mashindi's troop. That's a total of 3 gorillas.
Okay.
We have Ndume's troop, total of 3 gorillas.
Okay.
And then Mbele's troop has 5 individuals.
Okay.
And to answer the second part of your question, I don't have an answer for you.
Okay.
So we don't have a schedule. It's literally day by day, whatever the keepers decide. If we can come up with something even more creative the next day, let's do it. So the gorillas and any primates really thrive off of not having a schedule. So we don't want them to know what's happening next. They love being able to move around because that's what they'd be doing in the wild. So we do a lot of movement around throughout the day. So just because they're in the indoor habitat one morning doesn't mean they're not going to be in 4 other places later in the afternoon. So we are moving them around anywhere from 4 to 5 times a day.
That must take up a lot of time.
It takes up a lot of time, especially working dangerous animals. You have to be extra safe and secure. So each time, a lot of people are like, well, how in the world do you get them to move that often? Well, each time they move, they just know, like when a door opens, they go through it and they get another, part of their food that way. So we set up a lot of foraging behaviors, and males eat up to about 40 pounds of food a day, so they are constantly eating. Wow. And since they are constantly eating, they're constantly having to digest things, and then they do sleep a lot because their body is working on digesting food. So people may see them sleeping throughout the day. They're doing what gorillas do. They're happy, they're relaxed, they get to eat, they sleep. So yeah.
And what is something, or I guess just tell us about their diet. I was going to ask something that you would use to, like, high value reward, but will you just tell us about their diets in general?
Yeah, so they're typically herbivores. They will eat insects from time to time. Our guys aren't as big a fan of insects, but honestly, they have a pretty nice choice of food. So, but they'll eat all kinds of, like in the wild, roots, shoots, leaves. They'll eat bark. Like I had mentioned, they have giant canines. So if you come to the zoo and you look at the males, you'll see that they have almost a cone-shaped head. The males are twice as large as females. And that is actually their jaw muscles attaching to the top of their head.
Wow.
So that shows you how strong of a bite they have. So not only to help protect them in the wild, but also to chew the bark off of the trees and those types of things. So we try our best to mimic that again. So we are giving them all kinds of browse throughout the day. They get all kinds of vegetables. They do get a small amount of fruit. But we typically train for high-valued items. So the fruit items and sweet. They have a sweet tooth just like people do. So those tend to be the higher-valued items.
That's fun.
That's awesome. That's so cool that you guys have, I mean, since our renovation especially, so much space to utilize for moving the gorillas because they thrive off of that different days, right? A different cycle every single day, and that's awesome that you guys are able to utilize that. You talked about some of their high-value items. What are their favorite fruit foods? Is there all fruit for all of them?
Not necessarily. We typically train with grapes. They do train well with grapes because it's easy to administer, it's safe for us, and they enjoy it. But like Malinzi, for some reason, loves kale. She's the only one that enjoys kale the way she does, and man, she loves it. So they do this singing vocalization when they're really happy they get something nice that they eat. She just sings away when she is eating her kale.
That's
adorable.
I know,
but I kind of dance when I have food that I
right?
really like.
So it's kind of the same thing, but it comes out in a vocal way.
That's adorable.
Yeah.
Is there anything you've noticed that they really don't like?
It tends to be like squashes.
Okay, the plain stuff.
Yeah, the plain stuff. So they're a little bit spoiled, I think, in that way. That's fine with us.
Sure, yes, of course. Whatever they want.
Right.
And so you guys do a lot of training, obviously. They're really intelligent. Do you have any fun things you're working on or any past behaviors you've trained that you're really proud of or you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, I am very lucky to work with a team that is so experienced and has such great training ability that we've been able to really accomplish a lot. And it was developed, our training program with the gorillas was developed when first operant conditioning was first being learned about. It was one of the first places in the zoo that had developed a training program. So over the years, we've been able to accomplish a lot of things. So just for an example, this week we gave flu vaccines out. So everybody was trained to voluntarily come over for the vaccines. And, COVID vaccines was a huge accomplishment for our team. So we talk a lot about this trust bank. When you're going to sit down to train, you're always building up your trust bank throughout the day, even when you're not training. And so when you constantly want to try to put as much into this trust bank, so when you go to sit down to train a behavior that's a little bit more maybe scary as much as you try to prepare them for that situation. A vaccine, when you go to actually do the vaccine, it may sting, it may feel a little bit different. So you're going to automatically be taking out of that trust bank. So having built it up as much as you can, that way in 3 weeks when you have to give the second COVID vaccine, you have enough in that trust bank to get them back and get that behavior back. So everybody did great with it, but it was a lot of work and a huge collaboration between the vet staff. We have great vet techs that help us, and then our team as well. But so then gorillas are also prone to heart disease. So they do tend to get cardiomyopathy, and so we try to stay on top of that as much as possible. So they get their cardiac exams. Everybody is trained for cardiac exams from the oldest to the youngest. So Elle, I think, was doing, if I'm remembering correctly, got her first cardiac exam at 3 years old, and it was the cutest thing in the world.
That's impressive. That's cool.
And will you explain to people how this works? Because they're awake and they're participating, but you have to be safe. So how do you put an ultrasound or an EKG, or how are you doing it?
Yeah, so we have an ultrasound machine. So they're trained. We never are going in with our gorillas. It's far too dangerous. So we train through like a mesh wall, basically. So we can touch and palpate them and those kinds of things, but no appendages of ours are crossing the plane of that mesh. So same thing when we train, we ask for their chest to be flush up against that mesh, and then we put a probe on their chest. And we have people helping us out with the ultrasounds, kind of guiding us, so our attention is solely on the gorillas and making sure that we're super safe. We have a lovely lady named Jenny Schaff that comes over from Christ Hospital that helps us out with those ultrasounds, so we're very excited about that.
Did you have to build a special window or anything, or does the ultrasound, I can't imagine the mesh being big enough that do you have to move it around? Or?
So the probe that we use does actually fit through the mesh.
Okay.
So we haven't had to make a window, but I mean, when it comes, we will. But yes, sometimes these machines, depending on what I've gathered anyways, sometimes, like Melindsay in particular, her ribs seem to be closer together. So it's harder for us to get nice images of her. So she tends to have to sit there longer so we can get the probe in there and really get everything that we need. So it could be anywhere up to a half an hour that they're sitting cooperatively the whole time, kind of in an awkward position. So we can get those images, and then they're sent off.
Impressive.
And then all those images are then sent off to the Grade 8 Heart Project. So it's like a full record-keeping area, and so we can gather more information about why they're getting this heart disease and that kind of stuff. So.
That's amazing. I'm sure it can help gorillas and other zoos that maybe aren't doing this, or just in general. I don't know if it could eventually go back into the wild, but just learning more about gorillas. Obviously, we want to collect all of the information we can about all of our animals if possible. I think it's so impressive because I have a 2-year-old at home now, and I'm thinking, he would not sit still, even with all the snacks in the world, for 30 minutes, and they have the intelligence. So.
And then we also do blood pressure readings. So we have this giant sleeve that comes off their bedroom space. So they're trained to put their arm through the sleeve. And then we have what's called a tough cuff that blows up the blood pressure cuff around their arm. And so you're taking out your trust bank then when you can't explain to them why this is why they get pressure on their arm and that kind of thing. So, and then we have EKG. So we do the cardiomobile stuff with them too. So we're on top of their heart. They have great health care, probably better than some of the keepers do. But they do great.
That's awesome. So impressive. And it's funny because sometimes you think the more intelligent an animal is, the easier they might be to train. But that's also the opposite. And the harder they are to train, and the easier to ruin that trust bank because they don't forget and they're going to remember what happened the last time.
And they catch every little detail. So, for an example, when you go to do flu vaccines, if you don't have the exact, correct syringe size that you're practicing with the right colored cap. Like,
Oh my
these types of
gosh.
things, they'll catch it and like, oh, I don't think that's trustworthy.
Yeah.
So you have to be completely prepared for every little thing.
Man, that's impressive. Like, they
Yeah.
catch up on every detail. That's
Yes.
incredible.
And I'm sure you're doing a lot of enrichment with them too. Are there any of your favorites or their favorites, but your favorites to watch?
We love to give them things that they manipulate. So a lot of people think that only chimpanzees use tools. That's not true. All of great apes do use tools. So gorillas in the wild will be seen. They've been observed like taking long sticks and testing the depths of like swampy waters before they cross, because lots of times they're traveling through swampy waters. Or they'll be fishing termites out of mounds with sticks. So we try to mimic those behaviors as much as we can with our enrichment to bring out that natural history. So we have what we call like fishing feeders. So we'll put different like food items in these fishing feeders, and then they have to use a stick and pull out the food in that way. So like our little girls in particular are really great at using tools. So Elle fashions her tools perfectly, and like they tend to be like the same length every time. If it's not the right length, she'll make it the right length. Like she's very particular about her tools. Yeah.
That's so fun.
That's awesome. Is that something that they learn from watching their parents, or they learn from each other?
It is much more of like a learned behavior.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that we have Western lowland gorillas, but there are two types, correct?
So there are two species of gorillas.
Species, okay.
So you have the Western gorillas, and then you have the Eastern gorillas. So within the Eastern gorillas, you have the Growers gorillas and the mountain gorillas.
I've only heard of mountains. Wow, okay.
Yeah. And then in the Western gorillas, you have the Cross River gorillas and then the Western lowland gorillas.
I haven't heard of the Cross River either.
Yeah,
Wow,
so there are
okay.
very few Cross River gorillas left in the wild. I think that just recently released about 400 that they
Oh my
expect.
gosh.
But the only type of gorilla you'll see in zoos are the Western lowland gorillas.
And why is that?
You know, I don't know that answer.
Do you know the numbers for the other types, or is that...
So the mountain gorillas are up to about 1,000 individuals. So they have actually been taken off the critically endangered list, surprisingly.
How is 1,000 enough?
there-
Okay,
Yeah, I
I'm sorry.
know,
That's
yeah.
amazing, but also,
Right.
wow, that's not very many.
So this is the Diane Fossey Foundation that they have worked so hard. So when Diane Fossey, started doing research on our land, they were about ready to lose all of their land. So they've really been able, through that foundation, to keep that land. It's not very much, but they went from having 400 gorillas to now having 1,000 in that same amount of land. So because they're able to thrive in such a small space, that's why they're taken off the critically endangered list. But all the other gorillas remain on it. So Western lowland gorillas are thought to have about 300,000 individuals left, and that's from a census that was done in 2018 when it was published. And it was more than initially thought, not because there's now magically more gorillas, unfortunately. It's just they're getting better at counting.
Oh, okay.
But it's unfortunately thought to believe that we're losing about 2,000 gorillas each year.
Wow.
So,
Oh, man.
yeah, so in 25 years, they may be halved. So, yeah, it's really unfortunate.
Where can you find the Western lowland gorillas?
So the Western lowland gorillas are found all across the central part of the Congo Basin. So in Gabon, Republic of Congo, Nigeria, and Cameroon area.
Okay.
And what are the biggest threats that they face?
So logging, deforestation is 100% a huge threat. And then also the bushmeat trade is awful. So a lot of the communities that live around these areas, they used to hunt gorillas for food and to help their families survive and that kind of thing. Unfortunately, now the bushmeat trade has turned into a commercial business. So these people are driving in on the logging roads. That's how they're able to access the animals so easily. So unfortunately, they're taking a big hit from that.
Wow. One problem creating another
Yes.
problem, essentially, or
Yeah.
making it easier for
Yeah.
another problem. It's so wild to me. I get it if you're trying to survive and that sort of thing, but they're so close to humans. I can't imagine that being like an animal that people
Right.
would hunt and want.
Right.
It would become a commercial thing.
Yeah.
I know. It is a strange thing. And the good thing is, like, the Cincinnati Zoo is involved with Clubby Bobo. And I can talk more broadly about the whole project. But Clubby Bobo is a community outreach program in the area where the Western lowland gorillas live. So they really are teaching these tribes and communities how to live sustainably without doing that. And so they aren't taken advantage of by these commercial businesses either. So that has helped a lot educating the public that actually live in the area.
We hear that a lot, and we talk about it a lot, that education is simply one of the most important things we can do anywhere, when there are issues with habitat loss or poaching or things. Like, people are just doing what they can to survive, but if you can educate them on different ways or why you should save an animal, it makes such a difference. But
And the community outreach aspect to it, right? Like, you need to get the people that actually live there and actually share space with the gorillas involved if you want any of these projects to be successful, and it's so important.
Right, yeah. Do you know much about tourism? If people are going, is that helpful or hurtful to gorillas?
So there is a park called so this is all part of Clippy Bobo as well, and it's called, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, Mbali Ndoke National Park, and this is a massive, basically untouched area where these gorillas can live and thrive. In this area, a lot of different things are done in this area. There's a section of the park where it's called Mondika Research. That's where Mondika got her name from. But it's a section of the park that they're working on habituating western lowland gorillas to ecotourism, kind of like the mountain gorillas. That has been really successful. That's a great program. They have ecotourism, helps fund that program. So they're in the process of doing that with western lowland gorillas too, but it's a much harder area to get to.
Oh, okay.
So you have that, and then also within the park you have the Mbeli Bai study. So Mbeli, also named after the Mbeli Bai study. So this place is actually the longest running western lowland gorilla study in the world. And it's a big bai, so it's a big clearing in the forest. It's a big swampy area where all kinds of animals come and vegetate on. And so it's a great place to research gorillas. So we've learned a lot about gorillas through the study, that they do use tools, what age they mature, what their birth intervals are, what size groups they live in, those kinds of things. So all that information has been super invaluable to us because we can better manage our gorillas here. But also they're gathering all this information so they can figure out or kind of gauge how much land western lowland gorillas need to truly be sustainable. So that really helps gathering that information to kind of figure out what road we're headed.
And these clearings are so useful as far as studies go, because how difficult must it be to study gorillas in like the densely forested areas? Yeah, I can't even imagine.
Yeah, so, and it's funny that you mentioned that because we, manage our gorillas very similar to, we try to go in it with the same mentality of you have gorillas living in a very dense forest where they'd be in one group, but they could be sitting all around each other, but not seeing each other. Yeah. So they know each other are there, but they're not seeing each other. So we try to best mimic that here as well. So we have all kinds of visual barriers up, all kinds of different things that they can toss around or whatever that they would have in the forest. So just kind of like, think about when we were shut down during COVID, all of us kind of went stir crazy staring at each other in our houses, and think like if we had more visual barriers, would we have I don't know. But we try to mimic that type of thing too, because it can get irritating to sit around and stare at each other all the time.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned like the birth intervals. What is that? Do you know? And do we plan on, are there any chances of babies in the future?
So yes. So birth intervals are usually about 4 years. Females are thought to be fully mature about 10 years old.
Okay.
So Mbeli is another reason why he came here, is because he's genetically matched with our 3 little girls.
Oh, okay.
So once they become fully mature, we're going to start to have breeding recommendations. So Mbeli will be here for quite a while, and we're excited to kind of see full circle. So it is fun because I'm sure a lot of people know about Gladys's story. So Gladys, we did a surrogacy program with Gladys because her mom decided not to care for her and all these things. Successfully, we got her to be back in with gorillas with Malenzi. It's kind of a very shortened version of this. But it'll be fun to see it all come full circle and for her to have her own baby, and it'll be really exciting.
Definitely. Yeah. And I can't imagine, we did the hand raising with Fiona, which is just so different than a primate. Like, you guys had to go all out. I mean, you dressed up like gorillas, you grunted like gorillas, you walked on your hands and knees like gorillas. Yeah. I mean, she did give you guys a shortened version of that. Yeah. But they worked really, really hard. And I mean, I can only imagine how, like, rewarding it was that she then learned how to be a gorilla despite being raised by humans, and
Right.
it's so important because you need them to act
Right.
like a gorilla.
Yeah.
How old is Gladys now?
She will be 10 in January,
Okay, wow.
so it blows my mind.
Yeah.
But a lot of people ask, like, oh, what's your favorite moment at the zoo? And people will just assume I'm going to immediately say, oh, like, helping raise Gladys, which absolutely is a great moment. I don't want to, discredit that by any means. We don't want to have to go that route, but
Right.
it is very enjoyable when you do. But my favorite moment working here is watching so we were able to get Malinzi and Gladys together and let them bond up for a while. And the idea is that you want to add more females into the group before adding in a silverback. Since the silverback is not the silverback's kid, you're not entirely sure how they're going to act. So you want to have a strong female coalition build up and put him in his place if needed. So the day came, we had this big, strong female coalition build up with Gladys, and it was time to add in Jomo or Silverback. And it was the coolest day ever because these girls made just like a gorilla line of gorilla girls. I know.
That's so cool.
A gorilla line, like, in between Gladys and Jomo, and it was the coolest thing ever to see them take this extra precaution.
Oh my gosh.
And, of course, it was unneeded because Jomo was a great dad, and he just wanted to smell her and see if it was a boy or a girl, basically,
Aww.
right away. But it was just such a cool thing to experience.
Yeah. How old was she when you were able to reintroduce her?
So she was back in at 4 months old.
Okay.
So
She's still teeny tiny. Little
teeny
baby.
tiny. So you have a 400-pound silverback up against a 4-pound gorilla baby.
Oh my gosh.
That's a massive difference.
Yeah, and it's terrifying, I'm
It's
sure, for you
terrifying,
guys,
yeah.
but then so exciting when
So
it went
exciting.
well.
And it worked well, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. That sounds like an incredible experience, and it's always so rewarding when everything goes well, and you never know how animals will act. And it is one of those things where we try really hard to do the howdy and make sure that they all are getting along before they're actually
Right.
sharing space. But it's just like people, like, we aren't always going to love our
absolutely.
college roommate that we get thrown in with, or we could become best friends, or whatever. So that's really exciting when that works out. And then will you tell us the age of Mona and Elle?
Yeah, so Elle is 7.
Okay.
And then Mona is 8. And then Elle was the 50th gorilla baby born here.
Oh,
So
yeah.
Roman numeral L is Elle.
Okay.
So, that's how she got her name. But she's so fun.
I was going to say, I feel like she is the one that is just always putting on a show
She
when I
is,
do
yeah.
get the chance to go down
We
there.
call her a little tank because she, has been through a lot, and she's just so tough and so resilient, and she's just so fun, and she really wants not a whole lot to do with us, which I kind of love. Like,
Yeah.
she's off doing her own thing, and that's totally fine, but she's a ham, for
That's
sure.
so fun.
Little independent girl.
Yes.
She's so sweet. Do you have... we're not supposed to ask this question, but we always ask this question.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite gorilla?
I can't, like, narrow it down to a single one, but I definitely have a special place in my heart for Malinzi. She's one of the first gorillas I worked with. So, and people view her as being this grumpy gorilla because she has a very deep brow ridge. So people call it like a resting gorilla face because she's somewhat grumpy, but she's not grumpy at all. She has such a sweet personality, and she does even more subtle things that, like, lets you know that she's playing. So even as subtle as, like, she'll tap her finger, and that means she's, like, ready to play and, like, wants you to hang out.
Oh my gosh.
And these guys are nest builders, so they'll build nests at night to sleep on them out of different substrates. So in the wild, all kinds of, like, twigs and leaves and that kind of thing. So they'll get wood, wool, straw, really anything that we can think of as a substrate to give them. And she loves fabrics, so a lot of times people are posting photos of her, and she's got a piece of fabric on her head, but she just loves it. But she'll make nests out of fabric. She loves that.
That's so fun. We love seeing the meerkats get really comfy and cozy. They're one of the animals we can give blankets to.
Oh, yeah.
So watching them, like, they have a choice. They can have a pile of mulch, a pile of straw, and blankets, and they're always going to choose the blankets. Like, I can't blame you. So do you ever give them, like, a giant comforter or anything, or do you try and stay away from that stuff?
It depends on the individual. The comforters don't last too long. They do destroy things
They have
pretty
too much fun
easily.
with them.
Yeah.
No, that could have been a really comfy
I
bed.
know. So it is hard. They do tear our enrichment up, so we are constantly having to replenish it. Thankfully, we do have a great volunteer enrichment committee that helps repair our stuff all the time because they're constantly taking it apart. And Gladys in particular, if there's any, like, if we have a PVC feeder where you have to screw the top or the bottom out, she's it's unscrewed within seconds, and I'm like, well,
we tried.
It was good for those couple seconds while it lasted. Yeah.
So them being so smart, that's another challenge. I'm really trying to enrich them throughout the day. So
Right, yeah, not just smart, but they can manipulate so many
Yes.
things, you know.
get into everything.
The lions are smart, but they can't use a hand to like throw something. Or,
Right.
So that would be an extra challenge for sure.
One more experience I wanted to ask you about real quick. Pretty recently, within, I guess, 4 years or so now, we did open our brand new, beautiful indoor gorilla habitat, and we also kind of renovated our behind-the-scenes area as well. What was it like for your keeper staff to watch the gorillas get to enter this new space and basically get a new home?
Oh
for
my
them,
gosh.
right?
That renovation was a complete game changer to every single degree possible. So not only are we adding, I think it was over double the space for our gorillas, which is very impressive. But such a dynamic facility. And we're able to get so much more creative and to offer them so much more to have this very happy life that it was just a complete game changer. I think one of the biggest challenges for the keepers, at least what I've heard from over the years, is, you know, we're all very excited for this, but the safety aspect was like you're on a whole different level because you're working multi-floors, you're working multi-habitats. And then also you have to up your safety game as much as you possibly can. So I think that was, not that it was necessarily a worry, like we were able to troubleshoot those things pretty well, but it's just on a whole different level. For sure.
Yeah, because they're going up and down in different areas that you can't see. Maybe one
Yeah.
person has an eye on them up here and somebody's down there, and you guys have to communicate a lot, like, with each other,
A lot,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, I think of the safety measures, you know, we have to take place when we work with our painted dogs or our lions or whatever, and that's just kind of like a 2D map, right? It's all one floor layout, whereas you're dealing with multiple floors, multiple levels
Yeah.
that they climb up between. It's got to be hectic, to say the
very,
least.
very challenging, but also it's so, what's the word? Flexible as well. It's very strange because
Gives
like
you a
if
lot of
you
options.
have so many options and like every single, like we're still thinking of new things to do, like, oh, we could do this way or that way or offer them this. Like there's so many different options. So we're all so thankful for that.
That's
Yeah, that's fun and that's enriching for the gorillas too, right?
Absolutely.
No 2 days are the same for
Yes.
them. So
That's the goal.
yeah.
How warm does it need to be for the gorillas to be outside or to have access?
So it would need to be, it feels like 40 degrees.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then I know that one of my favorite things to watch is the training. So, like, from the indoor habitat, we can see you guys back there sometimes. Do you do training there often, or is that something guests can look forward to, or is that maybe they'll just happen upon it, or?
It's more of a happen upon thing. It's not a scheduled out scenario, and it is hard to schedule those kinds of things out since we don't have a gorilla schedule.
Yeah.
Too, you know, like we like not having that.
Yeah.
But we do try to train through that mesh when we can. So like a lot of people probably saw when Jomo was here, we would do a lot of his physical therapy on the indoor habitat, and that was really cool training because that, you know, I had not done physical therapy sessions like that before. and it
Yeah,
was
that's
so cool.
amazing.
To the point where he was stepping up on a box, like a 2-foot tall box. He'd step up on his left side, and then he'd step down, do his right side. It was such a cool experience, and people got to see that, and I love that. And you could just see the little kids' faces.
Yeah.
It was so
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
That's one of my favorite parts about the new, for us, on the outside. I'm like, I'm so glad that they made it so that we can see the
Yeah.
interactions and the training and that
Absolutely.
sort of thing.
And we'll do paintings and that kind of thing, too, so people can see it.
So fun.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything we
awesome.
missed as far as gorilla information that we should talk about, or you were hoping to mention?
I honestly feel like we covered a lot of it.
Awesome.
You guys had great questions.
Good. No, you told us a lot. I learned a
know.
lot. I still need a family tree drawn out.
Oh, we're on that.
Figure this out, you know. That'll just be for me personally. But
Yeah.
because I just can't keep up with the names. Probably because I can't pronounce a lot of them very well.
Yeah.
For me, it's hard to put the names to the faces when I get over there, right?
Yeah,
the 3 little girls are still not, I don't want to say easy because now they're getting to be the same size, but the 3 little girls I can still tell apart. But
Yeah.
it can be tricky telling who's who.
Gorillas are incredibly hard to tell apart and identify.
Oh, good. I'm glad it's not
Yeah,
just me.
it's certainly not just you. Absolutely not. It takes a while even for keepers when they start to learn all the individuals. And it's thought that each gorilla nose is kind of like a fingerprint to a person. So
Okay.
each gorilla nose is different.
Nose. Okay.
But I don't look at their noses.
Yeah.
I just
yeah,
Once you look with them enough, right? You
Yeah,
can glance
yeah.
at them and know who's
Or
who.
like if you know someone's acting being like L, just kind of being somebody's out there being crazy, just personality wise.
Yeah.
So like that's definitely L.
Yeah.
That's what's happening. So
Oh, okay. Well, then we will do trivia if you're up for it.
Yeah,
I
Ashley.
will do my best.
It's just fun. Don't.
If you're in, I've got some gorilla trivia for you
Oh,
guys.
gosh.
today.
Oh,
Well, then
no.
Of course, it's gorilla trivia today,
Sit
right?
back then because I won't know.
That's gonna be a trick question.
Question number 1 kind of has something to do. We touched on this a little bit, like just how human-like they are and how human-like gorillas can be. How much of our DNA is shared with gorillas?
Ooh.
What percentage?
Should I guess first?
Yeah,
Because I'm
go
guessing
ahead.
you know the answer.
Yeah, in general, yeah.
Okay.
All right,
Is it like
Jenna?
98.8%?
Yeah.
Actually, yeah,
I mean,
right
that's-
at 98%.
98%? Oh,
Yep.
gave it a little boost.
Right.
Yeah. Bonobos are closest related to us at 99%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so gorillas are
Yeah.
right at 98%.
That was
I
good.
mean, in
I
every
learned the
interaction you
bonobo
see.
part as an
Yeah.
intern.
it stuck with you.
Yes.
That's awesome. Yeah, in every interaction you see, you can always tell how human-like they are, and I think that's something
Absolutely.
that inspires a lot of people
Yeah,
to care for them,
definitely.
right? Yeah. All right, 1 for 1 here. Question 2. How old is the oldest living gorilla in the world believed to be?
Currently alive.
Currently alive, yeah.
Ooh, that's a hard one to keep track of sometimes.
We have 41-year-olds or almost 41-year-olds here.
A male? You're not going to tell me a male or female, are you?
I'm not going to tell you. You know?
Does one sex usually live longer?
Typically, not always, but sometimes.
Females? Do they normally live longer?
Currently alive. This is what's getting.
Yes.
I'm going to guess 44.
Jenna's guessing 44, okay? Ashley?
60.
60. Ashley's really close. It's 65.
Currently alive.
Currently,
currently
so
What is it? Who is this?
it's in Berlin Zoo.
Oh, okay.
The gorilla's name, I'm probably mispronouncing this, but it's Fatou, Fatou.
Okay.
It's a female, and she's believed to be 65 years
Oh
old.
goodness, yeah. I need to do a better job keeping up with
I thought
European gorillas.
50 was...
Yeah, it's one thing to be in the U.S., right? It's
Yeah,
another thing
yeah.
to bring in some European.
So Mbelly's dad was the oldest living male Aussie in Atlanta, and he lived to be 61 years old.
Holy cow.
wow.
Yeah.
You said that they...
I
into
know.
their 30s and they can live that much
I
longer.
know, isn't that crazy? I
Wow.
know. Great healthcare.
I mean, I guess
Yeah,
that's like one of
that's
those humans that's
double.
110, right?
Right?
Like,
Yeah.
lifespan 70, but 70, 75, somewhere right there.
Yeah.
But-
That seems young, though. For humans, right there. Oh, man, I definitely bombed that one.
All right, question number 3. Maybe the most famous gorilla that ever existed. Or existed is in air quotes here, existed.
Okay.
In what year was the movie King Kong released?
Ooh. You know me like years. You're just trying to embarrass me.
I have to
now.
ask a 1 year
Oh my
question
gosh,
for
I've-
Jenna every episode. In what year was the movie King Kong released?
I have no idea. That's embarrassing, but I have no idea.
1947.
47 for Jenna. All right, Ashley, do you have a guess?
That's too far back, isn't it?
No?
No?
Where is it?
I don't know.
I don't know my television history here. We'll say 1941.
Ashley's closer with 41. The correct answer is April 7th, 1933.
Wow! I thought I was
1933.
going
Okay.
way too far back. Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
interesting fact I saw when I looked that up, though. King Kong's vocalizations, obviously gorillas don't roar and growl like this, right? King Kong's vocalizations were an auditory blend of tiger and lion growls.
Wow. What kind of
Okay.
noises do gorillas make?
So they do a noise that kind of sounds like a growl. People perceive it that way, but it's called a purring vocalization. So it's very guttural, but it's a nice vocalization.
So
And
they're like happy or
yeah,
it's
they're
positive?
happy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
They also do this cough or barking vocalization that
Oh.
it sounds exactly like a cough.
Huh.
And it's a warning sign
Okay.
to other gorillas, like, hey, step off, this is your warning. But they'll also do, like, screaming or chest beat. They'll use chest beating for communication, too. But they have about 25 different vocalizations.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
a lot.
Interesting.
Different
That
grunts and
coughing one's very interesting because I've heard that
Okay.
when I've seen our gorillas before. Just randomly, once or twice,
Yeah.
I've heard that, and I was like, what was that?
How do you know if they actually have a cough or not? It'll just keep going on.
Yeah, right.
So they are susceptible to a lot. Like,
Yes,
you guys
they
have to be
are.
so careful.
Oh, absolutely.
That must be exhausting. I
So,
won't lie.
yeah,
I
they
don't-
can get everything
I'm not
we
jealous
can
of
and
that.
vice versa.
Ugh.
So it's a constant stressor for sure.
Yeah.
All right, last question for you all. A gorilla that I spent a lot of time with growing up.
Donkey Kong! I knew you were going to say that.
I know nothing about Donkey Kong.
Donkey Kong. All right. How did Donkey Kong get the name Donkey Kong? What's it supposed to mean? So Donkey Kong's creators gave him the name Donkey Kong to kind of like substitute this 2-word phrase that they wanted to get the picture across.
I don't think
I
they
don't know
got
if
it
I'm phrasing that
across,
right.
Yeah,
I don't know if I'm phrasing-
I wanted to get... Wait, what?
Yeah, so this is kind of like the picture of the character that they wanted to make was this 2-word phrase, and they named him Donkey Kong in place of this 2-word phrase. If you get it, I'll be impressed.
I mean, I don't even know how to guess.
Any guesses?
No.
I don't have one. I don't know.
I'm really curious what this...
Nothing. The phrase is stubborn ape.
Oh.
So I always
Oh,
wondered how he
okay.
got the donkey response, right? Donkey was supposed to mean stubborn. Like donkeys
Okay.
are the embodiment of stubborn, I guess. I think I would debate that, but some people may think that. And then Kong, because King Kong became synonymous with the word ape.
Oh.
So yeah, he became Donkey Kong.
Yeah.
instead of
Interesting.
stubborn
I
ape.
would not have ever...
Because
No.
Donkey Kong was a bad guy. He was the antagonist when he was first created. So
Oh, I really liked that game.
now he's turned
Just
sides,
riding
right?
like the
He's a good
train
guy.
cart.
Yeah,
Remember,
yeah.
like the coal mining cart.
Yep. Oh my god.
Oh man.
Oh, dear.
Well, thank you guys for humoring me.
Yeah.
You got the real
Those are
gorilla
great.
questions, but this is the King Kong and Donkey Kong
Please, it's
questions.
not that bad. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
that's pretty good.
Jenna, do we have anything else for Ashley while we have her?
Yes, Ashley, what can I do?
Yes. So the biggest thing for gorillas in particular is recycle your cell phones. So if you come to the zoo, we have different recycle boxes around here. We have a partnership with EcoCell, and you can bring in other things other than just cell phones. It's cell phone chargers, really any sort of electrical device that's not bigger than a laptop, or they won't take laptops either. But and the reason that that's so important is because there's a mineral in all of those gadgets called coltan. And that mineral is mined in gorilla habitat. So the more of those that we're recycling, the less of that needs mined. And more animals and habitat that we're saving. So that is my thing.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's so easy. Like, you don't ever know what to do with that sort of thing. But if you're coming to the zoo, you can turn them into a box and we'll recycle them for you.
Absolutely.
And yeah, coltan affects a lot of animals in Africa. So
Absolutely.
definitely helping more than just gorillas and an easy way to get rid of your stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like you said, these can be cell phones, like tablets, iPads,
Even the chargers.
e-readers,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Yeah, even the chargers. Yep.
That's
I carried around a bag of old cell phones for like 3 years in the trunk of my car. Like, I put them back there and then just kept forgetting to bring them in. But people would give them to me to take in. But
Yeah.
collect your families, go through the
Yes.
junk drawers, see what you have. You can bring them in.
awesome. Nowadays, everyone gets a new phone. What, every 2 or 3 years?
Yeah.
Probably everyone gets a new cell phone. So I'm sure sitting around your house somewhere, there's an
Absolutely.
old cell phone that you can bring in, help save gorillas.
Yeah.
Why not be a part of that, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We appreciate it for sure.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate having you on and
thank you
teaching
so
us all about
much.
gorillas. And it sounds like you have a lot of fun animals that you
Oh,
get to
so
work
much
with.
fun.
Yes.
So much fun. People and animals here. Thank you
Yeah.
again.
We know you're busy. Thanks for taking the time to stop by and chat with us.
Absolutely.
And thanks to all our listeners. Thank you all for tuning in for another episode.
Talk to you next time.